The rain hadn't stopped since sunset. It came down in sheets, blurring headlights into streaks of white and red, turning the highway into a river of reflections and fear. Daniel Harper gripped the steering wheel tighter than he ever had in his life, his knuckles white, his breath uneven. In the back seat, his 5-year-old daughter Lily slept with her small stuffed rabbit pressed against her cheek, unaware that the world was seconds away from shattering. Daniel was a single father, widowed 3 years ago when illness took his wife without warning. Since then, Lily had been his reason to wake up, to fight, to keep moving even when the nights were long and the bills were unforgiving. That evening, he had worked a double shift at the warehouse, exhaustion weighing heavy on his shoulders. He just wanted to get home. But fate had other plans. From the opposite lane, a sleek black car hydroplaned, tires screaming against the wet asphalt. The headlights swerved wildly, and in one terrible heartbeat, everything collided, metal crushing against metal, glass exploding into a storm of shards, the sound of impact echoing like thunder cracking open the sky. When Daniel opened his eyes, the world was upside down. Airbags deflated slowly around him like dying breaths. His ears rang. The smell of gasoline and rain filled the air. Panic surged through him, and his first thought wasn't pain, it was Lily. He twisted around, heart in his throat, and saw her small body slumped but breathing, her face streaked with tears from the shock. "Lily," he cried, fumbling to unbuckle himself. By some miracle, her side had taken less of the impact. She was shaken, crying, but alive. Daniel whispered promises to her, promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Then he saw the other car. It had spun and slammed into the guardrail. The driver's side was crushed inward. Through the rain and broken glass, he saw a woman trapped behind the wheel, blood trickling down her temple. For a split second, fear told him to stay with his daughter, to wait for help. But something deeper, a reflex of humanity he couldn't ignore, pushed him forward. He checked Lily once more, assuring her he would be right back, and stumbled through the rain toward the wrecked vehicle. The woman inside was unconscious, her dark hair falling across her face. Even in that broken moment, there was something powerful about her presence, elegant, composed, like someone used to commanding rooms. The dashboard was crushed against her legs. Daniel pulled at the door, but it wouldn't budge. Sirens wailed in the distance. "Hold on," he whispered, though she couldn't hear him. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, cutting through metal, pulling both drivers from the wreckage. At the hospital, chaos swallowed the night. Lily was treated for minor injuries and placed under observation. Daniel refused to leave the waiting area outside the trauma room where the woman had been taken. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But he knew he had seen how close she was to death, and somehow that connection bound them in a strange, invisible thread. Hours passed before a doctor approached him. "She's in critical condition," he said carefully. "Massive internal injuries. We're doing everything we can." Daniel nodded, swallowing hard. The nurse asked if he was family. He hesitated, then answered quietly, "No. But she doesn't have anyone else here." He didn't know how true that was, yet he felt it. The next morning, news outlets began reporting the crash. The unconscious woman wasn't just anyone, she was Victoria Langston, the powerful CEO of a billion-dollar tech company. A self-made success story, known for her brilliance and ruthless business decisions. Headlines called it a tragedy narrowly survived. But the hospital staff whispered that survival wasn't guaranteed. Daniel watched from a distance as men in suits arrived, tense and sharp, speaking in hushed tones. They looked at him curiously, the warehouse worker in worn boots who refused to leave her side. Days passed. Daniel balanced hospital visits with caring for Lily, who kept asking about the lady from the rain. Something about the way Lily said it softened his heart. On the fourth night, Daniel was allowed to sit by Victoria's bedside. Machines beeped steadily, marking fragile life. Tubes and wires surrounded her, yet her face looked peaceful, almost vulnerable. He sat down, unsure why he felt compelled to speak. "I don't know if you can hear me," he began softly. "But you're strong. They say you built an empire from nothing. So don't you dare quit now." He laughed weakly at himself. "My daughter, she keeps asking about you. She thinks you're some kind of superhero." His voice cracked. "Truth is, I'm the one who feels saved. That crash could have taken her. Maybe you swerved at the last second. I don't know. But I owe you. Silence filled the room except for the hum of machines. He leaned closer, clasping her hand gently. Her skin was warm but still. Please don't, he whispered, tears finally spilling over. You're the only one I've ever loved. The words startled even him. He hadn't meant them romantically. They weren't about a fairy tale love. They were about something rawer, the love of gratitude, of shared survival, of two broken lives colliding in the storm. He realized in that moment that since his wife's death, he had locked his heart away. But sitting there, facing the possibility of another loss, something inside him reopened. A faint movement interrupted his thoughts. Victoria's fingers twitched. Daniel froze. Her eyelids fluttered weakly before settling again. Nurses rushed in, checking monitors. It wasn't a full awakening, but it was something. Over the next week, Victoria slowly regained consciousness. Her recovery was painful and uncertain. When she finally spoke, her voice was hoarse. You stayed, she asked, confusion in her eyes. Daniel nodded. Yeah. Guess I'm stubborn. A small, fragile smile curved her lips. In the days that followed, they talked. At first about the accident. Then about life. Victoria confessed that despite her wealth and influence, she had no family left. Her parents had died years ago. Relationships had been sacrificed at the altar of ambition. She had built companies, but not connections. Daniel spoke about Lily, about losing his wife, about the quiet loneliness of single parenthood. Something unexpected began to grow between them, not out of dependency, but out of understanding. Months later, when Victoria was discharged, she made a decision that shocked her board. She visited Daniel's modest apartment with a simple proposal, not charity, not obligation, but partnership. She wanted to fund community programs for struggling single parents. She wanted to build something that mattered beyond profits. You reminded me what's important, she told him honestly. When you thought I couldn't hear you, you spoke like someone who had nothing left to lose. No one's ever fought for me like that. Daniel smiled softly. Maybe we both needed saving. Over time, their connection deepened, not rushed, not dramatic, but steady and real. Lily adored Victoria. And Victoria, who once measured life in stock prices and acquisitions, began measuring it in bedtime stories and quiet dinners. The night of the crash became a memory not of tragedy, but of transformation. Because sometimes love doesn't begin with perfection, it begins with broken glass and whispered prayers in hospital rooms. Sometimes the most powerful words are spoken when you think no one can hear them. And sometimes, when you say, please don't, you're the only one I've ever loved, you're not just saving someone else, you're saving yourself. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in second chances, unexpected love, and miracles born from storms, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Join us for more powerful stories that remind you hope is never lost, even on the darkest roads.